We're live.
Alright, you know what? We'll wait till somebody actually comes on before we start.
Comes on for like 20 minutes.
Somebody will.
You know that they can watch this.
Yeah. So, anybody yet?
Oh yeah.
Anybody yet? No.
Are we on the right thing?
It says live.
No, no. Huh? No, that's why I have it in the charger. Let's see if it's going live on
You're gonna cheat.
the. Yeah, it is.
You looking at yourself?
Yeah,
You can. They have filters on this thing now.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, it says put on a mask.
No, they're calling it masks. Please throw a filter on it.
back to
It says
Nice sepia going.
back to no viewers.
there's two.
Oh, stop! Don't put filter.
I'm not doing filters. I'm looking.
Oh, okay. There's people on. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm gonna start Alex's haircut. I've essentially sectioned it off into 4 zones. So we're gonna work the back first to a nice kind of short, tight, graduated shape, and then we're gonna work into the sides to create like a little bit of a disconnected like front piece that sits to the front, and then like a layered top through there. So. If you have any questions, just pop in.
What?
He's in school, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
It's me. It's like that.
Got some people watching here.
You can sit here if you want. Or, yeah, watch.
You got 4 in here now.
Cool. Alright, so we're going to start with a vertical section right through the center. So we're going to work vertically, and we're going to bring the hair straight out from the head. And we're really going to utilize our finger angle to kind of determine how much the hair is going to be graduated. So when you're working vertically, the things that are going to control kind of the shape vertically are the amount that you elevate it and then your cutting line. So if I were to take my fingers and angle them like this, it's going to get much heavier through the top, and we don't really want that. We want to stay with something that's pretty lean. So bringing it straight out, not keeping my fingers angled too much. I'm just going to work down on that cutting line. So I'm getting slightly shorter as I work into the nape. So that's going to be my guide for the back. We're going to work vertically in sections that work right next to it. So just directly beside it, same width, working quite small. I want to have as much control over the shape as possible. So section 1 will become my guide for section 2, but I'm not going to over direct into section 2. I'm just bringing everything straight backwards. So if we imagine the back of the head here like a sock drawer, that's kind of what we're working. So instead of cranking everything over to center and trying to preserve all the length behind the ear, just bringing every section straight backwards as we go. How's it looking on there, Chris?
That's good.
How many
12 people.
12 people, all right, we're up.
Up from the 2 we started with.
So, I think some key things when working with graduation vertically like this. Obviously, I think body position is going to play a huge role in it. I'm making sure that every section that I'm slightly shifting my feet, and that will allow me to have better control of the shape. Your lower body affects the outcome of the haircut just as much as what you're holding in your hands. as I'm working across, I want to keep everything flat. So I want to make sure that I'm not stepping around too much, but more so working just side to side. It'll allow me to keep the shape tighter of the head. Please, if you guys have any questions at all, shout them out. Chris can read them to me as he's filming. Has there been anything?
Not yet.
Nobody said anything?
Nothing yet.
Captivated them?
We're speechless.
Yeah. So as I get to the back corners, around the round of the head, the over direction really starts to become evident. It's not as much when you're on the back and the flat of the head when you work around into these corner pieces, and pulling it straight back really affects the kind of shape of it. So if I wanted to, I could continue to walk around with the head shape, and that would kind of keep it from getting longer right behind the ear. But I want to preserve that length and then be able to have something when I come in and do the refinement there to kind of take off if I need to. For those of you that are watching, if you like what you see, you can share it on your Facebook and it'll increase the traffic on here. We're going to start doing these weekly through the Prevay website, or the Prevay Facebook. Next week, Tuesday at 6 o'clock Pacific time, it'll be 9 Eastern, I believe, is going to be Free Education with Ben Crace and James Mould. I believe Ben's going to be doing a haircut and James kind of walking through the theory part of it. So if you're not familiar with them, you should check them out. They're two really incredible haircutters. We're also going to be doing some styling lives. We've got some things coming down pretty soon. So just stay tuned and we'll have a list of live broadcasts out. So that was the last section through that side. So hopefully you can see on there just a really lean shape. I want to come through and just kind of cross-check slightly. What I'm looking for when I cross-check this is just a nice flat line horizontally. So as long as it's good, then I can just kind of dust the ends. I don't want to spend too much time going back in and cross-checking, really just making sure that my technique is correct. So I feel good about that. So now I'll move on to the other side. So same rules apply. I'm still going to be elevating, controlling the shape with my finger angle, but what changes on this side is that my hand position will be slightly different. Where when I was working left, my fingers were pointed up. When I work this way, my fingers are pointed down. Now, this causes a lot of grief for some people. So some tricks that you can do is you can tilt the head and just allow yourself to get in a little tighter. Clip the hair away that you're not cutting versus on the other side I didn't really clip it. And then, really focus on working small, just within these first two knuckles. Those are the things that really help me the most. You just have to be aware if you're moving the head off of its natural base that it's going to affect your elevation, so you just have to adjust accordingly. Something else you can do is when you come in this way, it's hard to get the scissor in flat to your fingers. So if you just kind of tilt the scissor a little bit and then just use the tips, it makes it a little bit easier for you. Any questions, Chris?
Nothing.
Let me set in.
So there's 14 people though. So.
What are the names?
One's Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
From
I can't see the
Switzerland.
rest.
From what?
She was there in Philadelphia.
Oh, okay,
you,
cool.
You put her hair, yeah.
Hi, Jordan. So some people will start on the bottom when they're working the other side and work their way up so they can work from fingertips to the interior. It's not wrong to do that. If you're more comfortable and you have the control, I think that's great. I have a hard time with it. So I choose to work from the top down the same way I did on the other side. So for the sake of the camera, I'm turning the chair with each section as opposed to moving my body, but making sure that I'm maintaining that correct body positioning in relation to where the section is super important. Especially when I work this side, because this side will have a tendency to get longer, not only because of my finger angle, but because of the over direction. People have a natural tendency to kind of pull it farther over on this side. So I definitely work a bit slower on this side than I do on the left. And I don't really put a time frame on how long it should take me to do a haircut. Just making sure that I'm being consistent the entire time is what's most important to me. Look good?
Yeah. Yeah. We're up to 18.
If you need me to move or anything for angle, let me know. So really just being consistent with the sign. Last section. You can really see the over direction through here on this side now. It's going to get quite a bit longer behind the ear. But there's not much to cut based upon the previous haircut. So same concept as I work through this side, I'm just come in, give it a little cross check, make sure that my center point connects through to both sides. A little dusting, really not trying to take off anything through this area. But just the little inconsistencies that our fingers create is really what I'm looking at. So just a higher graduation now. Before the weight sat really low, we just moved it up to head shape. Once it's dry, it'll sit really nice and tight in, and then we'll do like a nice little outline through there.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's what your issue is.
What's going on?
Buddy. His
Okay.
comments are turned up
Oh.
because people.
Oh, really?
Well, here, you.
The beauty of the comments.
Yeah, you can read it off. It's fine. Sorry, guys. It's our first time.
Okay, Stephanie asked, do you always cut one side completely before moving to the other?
Not always. When I'm working vertically like this, though, I have a tendency to do it. If I was working more horizontal graduation, as in like if I maybe made a guide through the center and then worked more this way up the head, I would probably go back and forth at that point. I just feel I have a lot of control working vertically with graduation, but when you're doing it horizontally, sometimes you might need to take a little bit slower approach and then be able to match section to section, because if you cut it horizontally, you're working like the middle all the way to the edge in one section versus just the top to the bottom. I think you can like scroll.
I turned it on.
Oh, I think you can scroll back and see what
I
people
did.
have said.
Jordan
Anybody-
says hi.
Hey, if anybody else asked anything.
No. This.
Cool.
That's it.
We got going now.
Yeah, but I fixed it on the iPad, so.
At least we know it's working. All right, so I'm going to work into the left side first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a horizontal section across the bottom of the panel, and then I'm going to tuck it behind the ear. And then I'm going to work another horizontal panel right above that. And I'm going to cut like a little channel through the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the corner bit of this graduation that we did as my guide. So I just picked it up from right behind the section. I'm going to bring it straight out from the head. There's my guide. And I'm going to cut just a square flat line. I do this a lot, especially in these little bobs like this, because you know, I think for us it's really nice to be able to kind of blow dry it down really smooth and you know, have that kind of sleek look to be able to refine it. But in in reality, she probably isn't going to do that much. So if I am I right?
Least amount of work possible.
Yes, least amount of work possible. So if I create these little gaps in the hair, I mean, not only does it kind of add a little bit of texture, but I think it allows the haircut to kind of move a bit and change on a day-to-day basis to where she doesn't have to wear it flat down. And if she wants to wear it more textured, then it just kind of loosens up some. So I skipped another section, and then I went up above, took another horizontal, just working flat against the head. So it's the same thing every time. Now, what's going to happen, though, is because I'm working up the head, and I'm taking a guide from the back each time. So this will be the shortest kind of interior channel. This one's a little bit longer, and then the one at the top will be even longer because we're using the top of the graduation.
Got Ben on here.
Ben's on there?
Mm-hmm.
What's up, dude? So, Ben, I was just telling him that you're going to be doing this next week for him. Make sure you turn the comments on. Because we blew it. So, working up again, grabbing that section from the top. There's my guide for the interior. So what's kind of cool about this is that there's a connection point through the interior of the haircut from the layers into these channels. But then there will be a disconnection for the perimeter until the point where after we go in and do, kind of the strong outline through the bottom, then we will connect that through the disc. So you'll have two connection points. You'll have like an exterior connection that sits at the outline and an interior one, but those two are not connected to each other. So I think anytime you create disconnection in a haircut, it really kind of gives you more options. So we're kind of tuck in the other side. But somebody say something?
No.
Nothing.
Okay.
Do you remember when periscopes were like the big thing
Oh,
to
yeah.
do?
We were just talking about that.
Yeah?
That's what we should be doing.
You used to get
Not Facebook Live.
Be vintage.
Yeah.
All right, so same thing on the opposite side. I'm going to take a horizontal section across, tuck that out of the way. Then take another horizontal section, and this will be the one that I cut. So I'm just skipping one every time. I feel so much more relaxed knowing that people were saying things.
Well, only one person says
Well, I know, but still, it's better than I just didn't. At least I know it works. All right, so straight out from the head, horizontal, and flat to the head shape. Tuck that piece behind, and just repeat the process. So now we'll skip this one. And then we'll cut the next one. Now this will be the last one on this side. So on that side I did 3, on this side I did 2, and that's really just based upon the natural growth pattern in her head shape. So there's just a little bit more surface area through this side than there was here, the way that her hair grew. So we just wanted to kind of tilt it a little bit.
It's nothing against you.
Your head shape's fine, your growth pattern is just a little off. But that's kind of neat because it'll allow both sides to kind of have an independence to them. They don't really rely on each other.
Stephanie asks, how do you know how big the channel sections should be?
I mean, I think it's based upon the density of the hair. If they have really thick hair, then you could take bigger ones or more sections. If they have really fine hair, then probably less would be better.
Katie joined.
Who?
Katie Perkins.
Oh,
Hi, Katie.
hi, Katie.
Aw.
Okay, so both sides, for those of you just joining, if you essentially did like a vertical graduated shape through the back, kept it pretty tight to the head, just pulled everything straight backwards as we worked around. So we got like a nice square shape there, into the sides, horizontal sections, dropped the first one, pulled the second one out, cut it flat to the head, tucked it, pulled the next one out, tucked it, pulled another section, cut it flat to the head, moved it, so on and so forth. Did that up on both sides.
Where are we located? Where are we located?
Where are we located? We're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. At a little salon called the Creative Studio. Sorry. So, if Chris will show from above here, then we'll be able to see the kind of the symmetry of the top section. So, one side's just a bit higher than the other. So that's why we got 3 kind of channels on this side versus just 2 on this side. And really what I based that upon was how the hair naturally grew. So I've always been trying to cut the hair in its natural falling position, meaning that when I separated the back from the front, the hair that wants to grow forward went forward, the hair that wants to grow backwards stays in the back. So I'm going to clip off the underneath just to make sure that I don't accidentally pick some of it up.
James says hi.
What's up, dude?
And Marina says see you in New York in several weeks. Cool.
All right, so kind of going to do the same thing that we did on the sides to the top, except we're going to work kind of vertically. So I'm going to take this middle section out and we're going to leave it. So I'm not going to cut that. So what I'm doing is just kind of finding where they're going to go. So we're going to leave this one out. I'm going to cut one flat to the head using this piece as my guide to work through. And then I'm going to skip another one, cut another one, skip another one, cut another one. So really just utilizing disconnection in a way that's going to add texture and movement, so I don't have to go back in and do a bunch of stuff after to add that.
Chuck asks if there's anything new going on with Privé.
Who?
Don't know the last name.
Yeah, lots of new stuff. Doing a full rebrand, full launch or relaunch of the product, so there'll be some interesting changes to the products. The packaging will be completely different, and then our education is going to be solely based online. So we're going to be doing a lot of these Facebook Lives, and then also in the coming months, you're going to be seeing a lot more kind of interactive education that lives on the website for Privé. Really excited for the direction of the company, really excited to be a part of it, and that I've kind of got a really great team of people that care about education for hairdressers that want to kind of allow that platform to be there for us to do some really interesting things. So stay tuned for that.
Got Gerard on here now.
What's up, dude? We need your expertise on these live things. We have to learn how to do them really well like you do. So, cut that panel, and then we're going to take another section through here, and I'm going to push it off. So there's really no rules here for this. Like I could, depending on the density of hair, you know, the texture, we could take as many of these sections as we want and cut as many of these panels down as we wanted to. I'm basing it off of the area that I have to work and what the density of the hair tells me. So this one will be lifted up vertically, straight up, taking my guide from the top of the graduation on that side, elevating straight up and cutting square to the floor.
Gerard says, my man Mad Dog throwing it down.
I'm not Mad Dog tonight.
Well, Ben and James think so.
All right. So as I work forward, so then that'll be the last one. So then we'll leave this long piece here. And that'll kind of, you know, that'll get blended into the sides whenever we come in and do the perimeter. So yet another kind of element of disconnection in the haircut. So I'm going to go back to that middle section.
We're at the Creative Studio.
Yeah, that's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You're all missing out not living here. All right, so I'm going to work another section through there. So, I mean, if I wanted to, I could vary the size of these too. I could make one, you know, skinnier than the other, one fatter. It really is kind of up to you. You know, and that's the thing with these Facebook Lives that we do. We hope that we're not going to be just showing you how to do a haircut necessarily, but kind of giving you ideas that you can use in your day-to-day life in the salon.
What shears are you using?
These are Hikaris. They're called New Shikaras. I about cut myself with them. They're really good. You know, scissors is a really personal kind of thing, I think. That there's a bunch of options that you could choose from. I also like to use B-Max. There's a lot of good scissors out there. Just gotta kind of find the right one. So skip the section. So again, so there's less on this side, so just this little kind of sliver of hair will be left out there.
Gerard wants to know when you're going back to Japan.
I don't know. Whenever we go, we should though. Alright, so that was the last one. So we'll kind of drop so you guys can see before we start the blow dry. But now we get these longer bits that kind of sit over. Now, we're probably not going to leave them like that. Some of them will kind of fall into the rest of the haircut, but I like to get the general shape in, make it really strong when it's wet, and then leave kind of some of this interior stuff like that to be done whenever we go through and refine it. So that'll be the next little bit.
She's just like, you could see her looking through her hair.
Yeah, so if you just came on, Alex was kind of a late replacement. We had a model cancel like 30 minutes before the actual thing was supposed to take place, so rushed around. So, but happy with it. Been cutting Alex's hair for 100 years or something.
I always come in clutch for you.
You do.
Always.
All right, so for the blow dry, we're just going to do a really, like a flat kind of wrap on the hair. So I want to keep everything really small. Let's shake some of that. Keep everything really small and keep it growing, or keep it in its natural growth pattern. I don't want to see a lot of volume for the refinement part. So this will get pretty loud, so if you have questions, let me know. I'll try to answer the best I can. So when I blow dry, I try to work in zones too. So I try to keep everything really solid. He doesn't really have too much of like cowlicks or problems that are going to jump up on me, so I'm not really that worried about it. But still, I approach it the same way. So I'll blow dry the front first, just wrapping everything back and forth, trying to keep it contained and under control. And then I'll do the back, and then I'll move into the sides and the top, and so on and so forth. I think it's important to kind of work with the blow dryer in this manner, keeping the airflow kind of farther away from the head so it distributes and kind of diffuses out amongst the entire head shape. That'll help me blow dry a little bit faster and also get a nice polish on the hair. So already you can see like that front part's dry. It's got a nice shine to it. So that's really the important part for me with the blow dry. The haircut's the style, not so much what I do to it with the hot tools. There's a time and a place for that, and we'll definitely go over some more long layered looks and stuff and ways that you can, kind of create different textures and stuff like that with your hot tools. But for this particular haircut, or this particular shape, I want it to be very small and tight to the head. Also, the better I do on the blow dry here and my refinement, the better it'll be for her styling wise. The less that she'll have to do for it. Anything?
There's like 210 people in here.
Huh?
There's like 206 people in here.
206?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, for those of you just joining, welcome. We are just going through the blow dry portion of the haircut, and then we'll get back into the refinement aspect. Our hair blow dry is really nice for being as blonde as it is. A lot of times blonde hair kind of suck up the water, but it's in good shape, so it helps a lot. So I feel good about the top and the front there, so I'm going to work into the back now.
What kind of blow dryer is it?
Huh?
Okay, Brunette wants to know what kind of blow dryer that is.
Oh, it's a Elchum. It's a ELCHIM. It's just a really nice, kind of strong, old school blow dryer. Nothing fancy to it, just blows hot air really fast. Like a blow dryer. Is that it?
That's where is it? Where is this at?
Where is this at? It's in Tulsa, the Creative Studio. So my goal here with this will be to blow dry it to the point where I don't have to do a lot of iron work. I'd prefer to not iron the hair. One, because it's time consuming, and two, because when I iron it, it kind of changes the kind of way that the hair reacts. It gets a little stiffer. So if I can blow dry it really nice and get the shape in that I want, and control the growth patterns, then it's a little softer for me whenever I go to refine. Sometimes it's necessary, but my goal would be, if it is necessary, to only have to blow dry really or only have to iron through the ends of the hair, just to kind of smooth down any spots that are a little rough. But her hair is really, really nice.
Oh, cool.
What?
I just shared it with them.
Yeah, we're up to 300, sort of.
Was.
Keeps going in and out. There it is.
If you guys have questions, please type them out. We'll answer them best we can.
Can you speak louder?
Son?
Try to speak louder. I'm just.
What brush are you using?
It's a Vess brush. So VESS.
Is that 9 row?
Yeah, it's a 9 row. Yeah, just give it a lot of tension. It really helps smooth the hair out. I like it doesn't, the brush doesn't melt.
Please sense me. It's not. Aaron thought that was me, I think.
Aaron who?
Second.
Oh.
It's not. Okay, this is up.
Aaron is a hair dog.
That was yeah.
Alright, so it's pretty much dry now, so I'm just kind of going through making sure that I'm getting any little spots that might have been left. And also I'm kind of examining it and seeing how it moves.
Can you explain the haircut again after?
Yeah, totally. As soon as I get done blow drying, we'll walk through the whole thing. You look ready? Look ready? Okay, cool. That was your limitation, right? You guys trying to decide if you should read a question or something?
No, it's she just is curious, is it still okay to flat iron even though she has super curly hair that she doesn't like? So if she normally wears her hair straight, yeah.
I mean, I believe like if you have curly hair, then you should wear it curly. If you have, you know what I mean, like it just, I think it makes more sense. Like, you know, if you have really curly hair, to me, it's really hard to get it. You can get it straight, but getting it smooth is always going to be the issue. Like, straightness is never really kind of the thing that people want. We want it to be smooth and like, you know, soft and pretty, have a shine to it. So I just think curly hair should be left to be curly. That being said, if you like wearing it straight, you can do that. And, you know, just try to use stuff, you know, that's good for your hair. So, recap before we start the kind of dry cut part of the haircut. So we started in the back, took vertical sections, and just kind of separated from, you know, crown area to the mastoid, and took vertical sections and elevated them straight off the head and cut a graduated line in, pulled each section straight backwards from where it lived, so it got a little bit longer behind the ear, but it's a really tight kind of head-hugging shape. And then we went into the left and right sides, and what we did is we created these kind of channels of length that sit through the sides. We should be able to see when we pull it out. Just these kind of disconnected spots. So basically, took a section through the bottom, tucked it away, cut the middle one, dropped one, tucked it away, cut the one above it, so on and so forth. Did that on both sides. And then on the top, did basically the same thing. So we took sections from the back to the front, cut them using the length in the back as a guide. So now we get these little channels that sit in there. And so now we're just going to work on kind of blending all of that together to creating the shape and the outline that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and start in the back for the outline. I'm just going to use the tips of the scissors and kind of etch in the rough shape. It doesn't have to be perfect when I start. I just want to kind of get a general shape of what we're going to do in there. So really just kind of curving up with the shape of the neck, working until I get to about where the ear sits. You'll have to make some slight adjustments. Working around the ear just because of the protrusion, and then, when you work into the front with the line, kind of getting that knocked out first. For me, I want the back of the haircut back here to be the part that's really strong, and the front of the haircut to be a little bit more free. So, I could connect the line through if I wanted to, and I might, but the first thing I'm going to do is just create the line to the back that I want to see, and then, if I want to, I can go back in and do it.
Do you point cut a lot? I get told I point cut too much.
I point cut when it's necessary. I think you can point cut too much. What I would be wary of, or kind of aware of as you're working, is what's the reason that you're doing it for? For me, in this particular haircut, I already create a lot of texture through the interior of the haircut because of the way that I cut the layers. So I don't need to go in and point cut a bunch to create the texture. Now what I will do is go in and point cut through the top to kind of blend those pieces together, those shorter to longer pieces. And through the back here, I'll probably point cut a little bit on this line, but not to add texture, more so just to strengthen the line up. Because you get a different effect with your scissors whenever you point cut versus when you cut with the flat of the blade. When I cut flat like this, it's good for removing like a lot of bulk if I need to kind of just get it out of the way and get the general shape in. But there comes a point where it starts to push the hair too much. So what I can do, is really focus in with the tips of the scissors and get those little tiny hairs that kind of stick out and get in the way. So I think that you can kind of fall in love with point cutting and dry work in general, and kind of ruin the shape that you put in, because the wet haircut is about half of it. I'll spend about the same amount of time on the refinement, but only decorating, not changing the shape. Okay, so that's got that one side. I'm pretty happy with the line and the shape of that. It's look good on there. Cool. So we're going to move to the other side now. So just tilting the head, not moving it around too much. The more you move it, the more you're going to kind of disrupt the growth patterns and the way that the hair falls onto the skin. So I definitely don't want to, make it jump too much. So I can work this way or I can come back. I'll start working this direction. And then I'll come back some. Refinement's all about kind of being patient, not trying to do it all at once. I'm using the scissor to kind of clean up some of that neck hair. I'll probably come back in with a trimmer and tighten it up a bit more after, but there is a difference. If you can do it with a scissor, you just kind of get that much more control over cutting the hair. I keep walking in front of the camera, guys.
Clinton says, Aaron, what do the letters on your hat mean?
It means Oklahoma. Okay.
LA.
LA, yeah.
Have to look.
I forgot how many letters were in it. But look at that, Clinton. Yeah.
You barely got that.
Yeah.
It says homies help homies. part of it too, kind of working with what the neckline tells you. So, combing the hair a lot, seeing where it's gonna fall.
I think care more about your shoes.
Yeah. Aaron.
She's like, forget the hat, show us your shoes.
She said kicks. Okay, no. Be specific.
Alright, so kind of move on from that for now. So I'm gonna kind of work. Let me get that brush out of my case. That Seiko brush. So I'm gonna work kind of the same way that I did the whole haircut when it was wet. So I'm gonna start in the back. I'm just gonna work opposite to point cut through here and kind of soften some of that out. Work into the sides, and then the top and the fringe will be the last thing that I do. So again, guys, next week, around the same time, if you get the opportunity, you should tune in, because Ben and James from 3 Education will be doing a Facebook Live, and they are amazing hair cutters and incredible teachers, and it would be a really good kind of opportunity to watch them work the way that they do.
With this style work on a more rounded face.
Sure. Yeah, you know what, like, if you think about like your Milady books, and it's like, you know, oval face has to have this kind of hair shape and stuff like that. Like, I don't buy into that stuff anymore. I think like anything can work on anybody as long as they're willing to wear it. You know, I think that it's important that we don't kind of put people in a box and be like, you can't have certain things. You know, people see things that they want, and they want to try stuff out. So, obviously you think about face shape whenever you're, you know, working, you know, a cut, but, you know, just as important that is, I think it's as important to think about the person and whether or not they're kind of willing to wear it. So you really see the disconnections here. Okay, so the top, this piece, you know, it wasn't connected to the back. But once we're done, everything will kind of flow together. So working into the sides now. You can see those channels that we've cut in. So there's the longer bit, shorter bit, longer, shorter, longer. You know, I really just want to work into the shorter pieces. And just a little bit. I'm not trying to do a whole bunch through here.
Are you over directing when you pick it up the point cut?
No, I'm bringing it straight out from the head. I don't want to change the direction that it was cut in. If I were to over direct it, I would do that. I would change the shape that I put in. So trying to bring everything just straight off the head shape. To the other side. Kind of see these little channels in there. So really just focusing on the shorter bits. And then you can go in and kind of blend the two together.
Why cut the channels?
Just because they're shorter and they were cut very blunt. So the other ones weren't cut at all. But the channels were pulled out and they were cut very square and very blunt. So I'm just softening that bluntness out a bit. The longer bits weren't cut at all. That's just the length that was already there. So cut the channel, cut the little channel again, and then kind of deeper into it to just add a couple pieces that help it to blend. So working to the top. gonna kind of see the same thing. Shorter bits kind of mixed in with those longer pieces.
There's like 404 people in here.
Somebody's saying ugly things.
No.
Gotta watch out. Sometimes people can, it's the internet.
Why? Oh, she was asking why are there channels in the cut?
Why?
Yeah.
Just to add texture to the hair. So I'm not a big fan of like creating texture through point cutting or kind of dry work. Like I want the shape to be in there. So just by putting them in there, you know, it allows the hair to have a bit more movement and kind of act a little bit messier. But you can't really see it once it's like styled off. So I feel like when I cut hair like very precise. Like I subscribe to kind of this Sassoon way of thinking and like, you know, cutting hair very precise, but also like for it to have some freedom to it. So kind of combining those things. So here being a bit more aggressive to the interior, the part where I want there to be more texture. But I couldn't achieve this just by going in and point cutting afterwards. Kind of putting these little shorter bits in there helps me.
Someone's in there. Is that hair driving my eyes?
It like zoomed in on your face.
Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful.
Are you good
It
now?
was. It was nice.
It's fine. It's
I
fine.
have
It's
another
fine.
guy anyways.
It's fine. We're all fine
You
here.
and your
So-
natural
Okay,
state.
yeah, you good with that?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're gonna work into the fringe. This is just the fringe that she had when she came in, so I hadn't done anything to it. What I want to do is kind of section it off a bit to get the longer hairs to kind of fall out. Let a little bit of them come into the fringe just so we can kind of blend that line. But I want to keep the majority of that longer length that we left through those channels on the top in order to keep the disconnection. So I'm just going to have her turn her head towards me. I could have come in and done this when it was wet, but I wanted to see kind of the fall of the hair and how it was going to react.
So this is the video that's 8.4,000 views.
How many?
8.4.
That's good.
Please.
So just a shorter fringe, kind of slightly rounded down to the corner. And that was just the rough shape. I'll come back in and I'll kind of point into it. I'm also elevating the hair slightly when I'm doing this. So not flat down, just slightly elevated. I just want to bevel the hair just a little bit. So when I let go of it, it doesn't create like a shelf in the front, but it sits nice and tight kind of into the head shape. Close your eyes. So I'm going to have her lean her head back now, and I'm going to just press down on the hair, and I'm going to go in with the tips of the scissors. And just kind of chunk some of these pieces out. I just want to really want to keep the line really strong, but I also want there to be a bit of an unfinished look to it. Pressing down on the hair like this will help to put just a little bit of tension. So when I let go, it'll release. And it just helps the pieces that kind of sit on top to jump a bit. That brush go.
We're up to 500 now.
That's 500 people looking at you.
All right.
I'm sorry.
They say you're very chic.
I didn't do anything today.
So just the top part of the fringe there, lifting up and kind of adding a bit more layer to it. Just kind of working as I go and changing it how I see fit. So I had a really strong idea of where I wanted to take the haircut when we started, but there are certain elements to it that I think it's okay to, I don't want to say wing it, but it's definitely okay to kind of like allow it to come to you a little bit later. So I didn't cut the fringe when it was wet, just because I wanted to see what the haircut looked like before. I might have left it, and I liked it before, but with that shorter bit under there, now I think it makes these look a little bit more exaggerated. But it's cool because she can kind of push it off to either side. I think it'll make for really interesting pictures. I don't know if she knew that we were going to take pictures after. We are.
It's fine. I think if she hadn't washed my hair, I would have gone like 4 more days.
So these top bits are really quite long. So.
Got another scissor question. Which one are you using?
Sorry?
What scissors are you using?
Oh, they're Hikari new Shikaros, is what they're called. Alright, so last little bit, we're just going to tighten the length around the face and to connect with the length in the back. So because the hair is dry, it's going to jump a bit more on me, so I'm really kind of going to inch up to it. I don't want to cut it too short. So I'm just lifting as I cut. So I'm kind of like scissor over combing it, but just out here on this length. So I'm just helping the shape kind of bevel in a bit. Again, I wanted the back of it to be very, very strong and the front to be a little looser, but I just want to make sure that there's a bit of a connection point for when it's styled that it kind of looks like it fits. It's not just sitting off that length. So same thing on the other side. Kind of finding the length about where it is there in the back, and then working across. Lifting as I cut. And some of this that I'm getting is like those disconnected bits from the top there. So even more kind of disconnection but connection that sits through the haircut.
Ernesto's this crazy haircut, dude.
What?
That's what he said.
Crazy haircut, dude.
So that's it. That's the finished kind of look. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some spray into it and kind of move it around a lot and see what the texture is going to do. My buddy Mike from the Kingly Hair Group always says, try to make it look bad.
He's on there.
He's on here.
Yeah, he just joined.
Oh, what's up, dude? He'll be doing one of these in a couple weeks as well. But yeah, so I think it's important to do that. You kind of spray it and then move it around a little bit and see if there's any spots in the hair that don't really kind of fall right. So, you know, you can move it around and it looks good no matter where it falls, or kind of looks editorial no matter where it falls, then you're kind of hitting on the right spots. So obviously she's not going to walk around with it like this, but she might.
Don't speak for me.
Most people wouldn't, but you know, I want it to be, if she did though, that people would be like, damn, that looks nice. So,
She did that on purpose.
she did it on purpose.
What did you spray it with?
Just a hairspray. It was just like a finishing spray. Kind of moving the top bits around and seeing how they fall, because you know this can basically she's got choices now. She can wear it's one side or the other, and that's going to really kind of give her different options for the look. Or she could just do like a bun on the top of it.
With just the long beads.
Yes. What? You guys are laughing about stuff and they're not telling me.
I don't like it either.
We're laughing at you.
You just can't hear it. They
Just the
can
whole
hear
time.
it, but you can't hear it. So they can hear it, but you can't.
Can hear what?
Our comments about it.
All right, so this is basically, we're done. Not basically, we are. That's kind of the finished look. So, really tight graduation through the back that sits in nice and small to the head shape. Disconnected panels that ran through the interior, cut shorter with the longer bits that left over, and then we cut those out and connected them into the line. Short panels that went through the top with the longer disconnected bits that can now kind of move on either side. Do we have any questions before we go?
Do you like
Yeah,
it?
do you like it?
Yeah. I'll keep it.
You don't hate it?
I mean, I don't hate it.
We had someone say that.
All right, well, thank you guys for tuning in. If you say, just kind of keep an eye on the Preview page because we're going to be doing weekly Facebook Lives. Next week is 3 Education with Ben Crace and James Mould. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Bye.